I literally got to clean and put mineral oil on the claws of Fred bears, Bengal tiger, grizzly bears, polar bears. So you're okay with ripping a fish out of the water by its lips and suffocating it when you pull out? I said, but you're going to look down your nose at me because I shoot a coyote from a helicopter? If I was an animal, I'd be like, heck yeah, I'd much rather that than screaming, which I've seen a deer screaming as coyotes eat it alive. The people that don't understand that or haven't seen that, they don't get that. If I was to pick my favorites, I would say it's the ones where, I lose 10 or 15 pounds, I'm exhausted, I've been sleeping in a tent for 12, 14 days. Those are the ones when I'm just pushed to the max. This is Fred Eichler, and you are listening to The Wild Initiative.
Put down your latte and pull on your boots.
Our culture needs people that are leaders and not people that are waiting for somebody else to show them how to do it.
Those fields of tofu, that was formerly habitat for wildlife. You're killing off wildlife by being a vegetarian just as much as a hunter when he kills a deer.
I'm like, well, you see that bush right there? There's your bathroom.
Yeah. My dad wears a Levi jacket. He sits in front of a sagebrush and he tells me the best camo is hold still.
Not to Donnie Vincent this, but be relentless in everything you do. Don't crap out, go back to the truck with excuses or whatever.
Okay, assume I get a deer. How do I cut it up to fit into a Honda Civic?
Just get outside and go, because once you do, it's all gravy from there.
Hey, this is Zach Griffith.
This is Hannah Barron.
This is Jason Phelps of Phelps Game Calls.
Hey guys, this is Cody Rich from the Rich Outdoors podcast.
What's up guys, this is Chad Mendez.
You're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of The Wild Initiative, brought to you as part of the Waypoint Podcast Network. All right, also hopping into today's episode, I'm on the line today with the most interesting bow hunter in the world, the one and only Fred Eichler of Full Draw Outfitters. Fred, I'm already laughing just because of the conversation we had prior to this.
No more.
Yeah, y'all, you don't even want to know. But thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to have you on, man.
Oh, of course, Sam. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So, I'm kind of the adult onset hunter. I didn't grow up doing this. I grew up in the suburbs on a little cul-de-sac, and the outdoors was kind of a little vacation for me. So one of my biggest passions is hearing the stories about how people were introduced to the outdoors, because it's so different from one person to the next. And I'd love to hear from you. Just how did you get your start? What really ignited your passion for the outdoors and hunting?
Well, I would have to say it was my father, and then of course, growing up with Fred Bear as a mentor too, reading the Fred Bear field notes. So my dad was the person that got me addicted to it. We would duck hunt and deer hunt and hog hunt and do everything together. And, of course, growing up, we didn't have a whole lot. My dad got divorced when I was relatively young, so it kind of put him in a little bit of a lurch money-wise. So literally we would eat squirrel and rice a lot. And if I missed a squirrel, it was just rice. So it was... we truly lived that field table lifestyle and ate everything we harvested. So, but it was awesome. Me and my dad, super close. But yeah, the hunting definitely came from him. And then, the other influences, growing up, I was an avid reader. I loved reading and still do. But reading, Fred Bear's field notes and about the adventures Fred Bear had. And he did such an amazing job. He was such a great storyteller. And Fred, I got to meet him in person. And actually when I was very young, and whereas I've been disappointed with some people I met that I, held in a certain regard. And when I met him, I was like, that's not really who I thought they were. Fred Bear was above and beyond. He was super gracious, super nice, made you feel important. Like you were, man, he was focused on you and, wanted to talk to you. So I was really fortunate. I got to meet some really neat people that had an influence on my life as far as hunting in the outdoors, besides my dad, Fred Bear, John Masakia, there was a lot of them that, they're just super people that I was very impressed with.
Fred Bear's one of those personalities, one of those characters that he's almost like mythical, in my mind. I feel like he's up there, with like Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone, he's just legendary. Like what can you honestly say about Fred Bear? That's
a great analogy, Sam. You're 100% right. I mean, he he did it all. He was the first one to do tons of stuff. I mean, Bengal tigers. So Sam, imagine one of my first jobs, I'm talking about 18 years old. One of my first jobs was working at Bear Archery, and my job was working with Frank Scott in the museum, the Fred Bear Museum and Pro Shop. So not only was I messing with bows, I was hanging out with Frank Scott. Bob Munger, who was Fred Bear's lifelong hunting companion, would come in there, after Fred had passed. I literally got to clean the claws and put mineral oil on the claws of Fred Bear's Bengal tiger, grizzly bears, polar bears, and mineral oil on the noses. So, here I'm this, young kid, and I'm just like, one day I would love to just see one of these animals. Like, I want to see a moose, and I want to see this, I want to see that. But I didn't think, I thought I had about as much chance to fly into the moon, but it was, it was a dream, and, something that I strive to do. So archery has always been a huge, part of my life.
Well, it's one of those things, like it's funny because I identify with that mindset. You talk about, the hunting a moose, even like I remember when I first started getting interested in hunting, and I'm stumbling through this. I'm a city kid. I'm working in Los Angeles in an ad agency, and I'm like wanting to, everyone thinks I'm weirdo because I want to go out and shoot animals, and I'm sitting there, and to me, all I knew of hunting was like, okay, you go and you sit in a tree stand for whitetail, and I guess some people hunt turkeys, and literally that's all I knew about it. And started a new job in the music industry, and I met this guy who hunted elk, and I actually just released a second podcast with him. And I was like, oh man, and it was that same mindset of like, yeah, I have as much chance of making it to the moon as ever hunting something like an elk, like the romantic notion of, the on the mountain with my bow in the driving snow, chasing the, very, very Donnie Vincent. And I had this romantic notion of like, yeah, that would be awesome. But maybe in like 20 years when and I'll need to be rich and, all of this stuff. And it just seems so unattainable. And I think that will always be one of the biggest problems we have as hunters, trying to get new people in and people from different backgrounds that didn't grow up with granddad's gun, is this concept of like, it's unattainable. To do what I want is absolutely unattainable.
No, you've got a great point there. And I think there's a lot of people like that, whether it's, boys or girls, their parents don't do it, but they feel that pull that, what I mean? They know they've got canine teeth. They like eating meat, and, maybe they don't want somebody driving a steel shaft through their cow. They want to take it themselves and enjoy some of their own, self-harvested, field to table, doing it themselves. And, to me, that's a lifestyle, and it really is. And obviously you were drawn to it, despite the fact not growing up in it. I grew up in it, and I just wanted to take it to the next level. I mean, my dad was that, guy that was, when it was summertime, we were fishing, what I mean? Springtime or summertime, we were fishing, we were turkey hunting together. We did a lot of our stuff revolved around the outdoors, also because, we didn't grow up with a ton of money. So it was affordable. You could just, it didn't take much money once you had a canoe to go out and, paddle in the river, take a fishing rod, and swing by, Cabela's or something and, grab a couple lures and go out bass fishing. So, it was stuff we could do. And, it's been so important to me and even raising the boys, being able to take care of yourself, being able to have stuff. So, I mean, we've taken it to the extreme now. I mean, we've got a milk cow, so we have our own milk. We have chicken eggs. We've got, horses. We've got cattle. The outfitting business. I guide hunters, and we butcher our own meat and we dry it. We have bees, so we have our own honey. A lot of times the meal that we'll make, we have a big garden. We can hundreds of quarts of vegetables a year. So, literally there's times we'll sit down and we'll eat for a week, and it's all things that have come from our place, which is really, there's a lot of pride in that, not to mention, like you said, the excitement or the, as you referred, very Donnie Vincent of you to, the amazing, it's silly, but just watching the sun come up and being out there and hearing a bull bugle or hearing, that first moose grunt, when you've watched it on TV or you've read about it in magazines, and, seeing that first grizzly bear, anything, the first wolf, the first, antelope, the first, all that stuff. And it's so neat to read about other people's experiences. And again, I refer back to Fred Bear because I think he did such an amazing job of telling stories that it wasn't just about the kill. That was a very minute part of it. What made Fred Bear such an amazing writer and made his story so great is Fred Bear came out in it and he loved everything. And, there's pictures of him with chipmunks on his hands or birds or the feathers when the leaves were changing. He loved it all, like most true sports people, outdoorsmen and outdoorswomen. And it is truly fascinating. And it is the real world. We get caught up in these cell phones and video games and all the fake, that's the real world. And I think the more people that get to know that, the better the world will be. Not to sound, like a fruitcake, but, I really do. I think we get caught up in too much, BS.
It's one of the absolutely most special things about what we do, and being out in nature, out in the wilderness, out hunting, regardless of why you're out there. It just, it puts a lot of things in perspective. And, it's interesting. I feel like, you talked about being able to basically create an entire meal from things from your own property and meat you've harvested and all of this. And I think it's an interesting progression, because I think that naturally follows for a lot of people. Maybe you get that interest in hunting because you want to harvest some of that meat, and then you do it a few times and you're like, well, now I kind of want to start processing it myself and learning how to take that and break down the animal and piece it out and preserve it. Then like, I know for a fact I've started cooking more. When I was living with my parents for a while, they were both so excited that I had started hunting, because that meant I was cooking a couple times a week sometimes. And they used to say, they're like, man, we love Sam's getting into this hunting thing. Our meals, he's cooking all the time now.
This is terrific.
But then, it's really interesting. I was going to say, I think then, you're looking at that, you're like, okay, well, I'm still going out and I'm buying chicken and doing this and buying milk or buying honey, whatever it is. And it's like, well, I could maybe start in and delve into that a little bit. I'll get some chicken. So I got eggs and meat, or, okay, well, you know what? I could get some bees, set that up. That'd be good for my garden that I'm planting. And all of a sudden, you're delving into this whole lifestyle, and maybe it was just, you're like, man, I just wanted to go out and shoot a duck once.
Yeah, that's what it led to. Yeah, exactly. A whole lifestyle change. So you're right. I think you hit on it earlier. No matter what the reason you're out there, and don't get me wrong, I love, and I'm competitive with myself. Like, that end goal, don't get me wrong. I want to catch a fish, what I mean? I was in Florida the other day, and it was like, my son was out fishing me, and I was like, man, I was beating the water up. I wanted to catch a fish so bad. And not that it's a, competition. It was fun, to be with my son, but at the same time, I want to eat something I caught. So, we stayed at it, and, we ended up catching some bass, and that was our dinner that night. We ate bass that we caught. Fortunately, he caught a lot more than me, so we were able to enjoy a whole meal. But, hog hunting, I'm that guy. I mean, even the kids, I was wearing them out. They're like, really? You want to keep hog hunting? I'm like, yeah, it's midnight and it's a full moon. So there'll be more of them coming out the later we go, and then, I'm up again at 4 a.m. because I'm like, oh, well, it's open in turkey season. We got to go turkey hunting. So, I can go on no sleep until I just finally, a week into it, I'll just pass out and sleep for 10 hours. And I'm like, boom, let's go again.
It's, it's funny. I just had a conversation with my buddy Trent, and it was a podcast, and we talked a lot about how so often, like, the outdoor generalist is starting to disappear a lot of the times. And his joke was along the lines of like, oh yeah, I just joined the Society of Left-Handed Bow Hunters with tree stands that only face east, like, and it's like goofy. You're like, oh, who would do that? But so often that it feels like that's what the hunting industry is turning into. Like, okay, you can't be like a bow hunter and actually, God forbid, go out during rifle season or, whatever, or go enjoy something. You can't be a Western hunter and still enjoy going to Louisiana and sitting in a tree stand over a food plot, or, hunting turkey. If you can't enjoy turkey hunting if you hunt elk, God forbid.
It's getting a little out of hand. That's you're starting on stuff that I wrote down there that's a pet peeve to me is the splintering of groups. I mean, I literally had a guy make a post the other day on my fan page. We put, because I enjoy it all. I mean, bow hunting is my passion. That's still my favorite thing to do, but I'm not shooting ducks every day with a bow. I'm shooting them with a shotgun, and and I love hunting turkeys. And I shoot the majority of them with a recurve bow, but I may grab a compound. I may grab a shotgun during the fall season. I may shoot them with an AR, whatever I can grab. But, somebody had made a comment like, oh, well, I don't think that's a good way to shoot them. And I'm like, I just jumped on this poor guy, and I'm like, let me tell you something, and I looked at his page first and I saw he was a fisherman, and I'm like, so you're an outdoorsman and you like fishing. I said, so you're okay with, ripping a fish out of the water by its lips and, suffocating it when you pull it out, I said, but you're going to look down, down your nose at me because I shoot a coyote from a helicopter, if it's legal. Or, I'm like, if it is legal and it has to do with the outdoors, we need to support each other, whether we personally do it or not, whether I think, it's a lot of it's people just trying to push their own values on other people. And I hate that, whether it's religion, politics, or anything else. Everybody should have their own. But as far as outdoorsmen, I think if we don't all stick together, and whether I personally like, hunting high fence, in front of a pile of corn or not, I'm certainly not going to bash some other guy for doing that. If that's his experience outdoors and it's legal and he's doing it, then more power to him. And if we don't vote that way and support it, but trappers, I grew up as an avid trapper, and there's people that, even hunters and outdoorsmen, that are like, oh, I don't think people should be trapping. I'm like, you know what? They're going to get us one little piece at a time, and it's going to be traditional and muzzleloader, and then this, and then trapping, and then, fishing, or, at what point is baiting hunting over a acorn tree that's dropping acorns, or, it's if we don't support it all and fight for it all, we're going to be in big trouble. So I agree with you. These little splinter groups and, thinking they're better because they're using a certain type of weapon or hunting a certain way, or, thumping their chest and saying, oh, I hiked 10 miles and, I only do it, barefooted, or, I think some of it's going the wrong way. And that's why I liked Fred Bear. The best ad campaign ever was be a 2-season hunter, hunt with a bow, hunt with a rifle, enjoy it all, but, try it all. So sorry to kind of get off on a tangent there, Sam, but that's one of the things that I think, is such a huge message, and people are getting a little, splintered off into these little groups. And if they don't go with the Big Tent theory, we're going to really struggle preserving it in the future.
It's one of those things. And I feel like the majority of these people criticizing whatever it happens to be have never actually tried it themselves. I'm sure some have, but the people talking the biggest shit tend to be the people that haven't ever done it. And me, again, like, I'm not going to pay $5,000 to go hunt someone's ranch in Texas, for whatever it happens to be. That's just not something I'm totally interested in. Down the line that may change. I don't know, but somebody offered a chance for me to come down, check out their ranch. And I did a little bit of hunting, and I took a fallow deer doe, and I took a red sheep ewe, and it was an awesome experience. And I've really enjoyed it. It was really nice sitting in a leather chair, having my coffee in the morning, taking the side-by-side out to the blind, sitting in the blind, talking with a buddy for, an hour until the feeder went off, and then boom, and then going back and enjoying a great lunch and a nap.
It's so like you said, you just made a great point. And a lot of the people that are bashing stuff, they haven't tried it. And Frank Scott told me one time, and I was very fortunate because those older guys they saw through any BS, quick. And I had made a comment, and I literally was in my teens. I think I was 18 or 19. And Frank Scott had said something about, baiting bears. And, I knew Fred Bear, hunted, bears over bait and stuff in different places. And I said something just offhanded, like, man, that doesn't really seem, you know what I mean? I really want to shoot a bear, but I don't know if I want to shoot it over bait. And Frank Scott looked at me, and he knew I had never shot a bear, never even seen a bear at that point. And he's like, have you ever hunted bear over bait? And I looked at him, and I mean, Frank was probably in his late 70s at the time. And I said, no, sir. And he goes, then you really don't have an opinion on it at all, do you? And I was like, whoa. But, him putting me in my place, at his age, and I had so much respect for him, just that comment made me go, wow, I guess I need to keep my mouth shut because I don't really have an opinion on it. And then later, when I hunted bears over bait, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's not that easy. And it is a great way to manage the bear population. It is a good way to make sure, you're taking board and all the other advantages to it. I went, wow, I should have never even opened my mouth. But that was me being young and naive. And I think there's a lot of adults that didn't have an older man or an older woman put them in their place and go, why don't you shut up? You don't really know what you're talking about, and you need to pipe down. And I think if there was a little more of that, people might think about it more. But you gave a great example in Texas. Whether it's something you personally love or don't, just support it. Those guys are out there buying outdoor products. They're buying hunting licenses. That money's going to the Pittman Robertson Fund. It's all a good thing. Why fight that?
So how do we, I don't want to say like, so what's the solution? Like, how do we fix this? Cause that's just such a loaded question, but like, how do we really, I guess maybe start that dialogue? How do we get things rolling with that to start kind of reducing this splintering of outdoorsmen and hunters?
I think it's education, Sam, and I know that sounds very cliche, but I think it's education. I think, look at what Johnny Morse did with, the WOW Museum. I don't know if you've seen that, the Wonders of Wildlife Museum, but if you have a chance, or any of your listeners have a chance, it's in Springfield, Missouri. It's incredible. And it is a conservation message. And it talks about all the amazing things that, thanks to hunters and fishermen, that we have today, all the lands that were preserved, goes back to Teddy Roosevelt and all the things that were set aside to protect outdoor pursuits, and all the animals that benefit, whether it's target animals or non-target animals, all the, songbirds and, all the other animals that benefit from hunters and hunters licenses and things like that. So, I think education, talking about it, educating people and helping them realize that, hey, we need to support it and look at all the good that comes from people enjoying the outdoors. And whether that's, kayaking or, hiking, it doesn't matter. Look at the Appalachian Trail and all these amazing things we have in the United States that most countries, could only dream of having. And, I think whether people don't enjoy hunting themselves, they need to look at it and go, wow, I at least respect the person that wants to harvest their own animals. And so, sadly, as we get further and further removed from rural America, look at these sad, questions that teachers will ask kids, where does milk come from? And they draw a carton of milk, or they draw a grocery store, or they'll say it comes from this. People really don't know now, a lot of people, where things come from. And, I get chewed up when somebody will, say something and, well, I'm a vegetarian and, I don't think it's right. And I'm like, I'm a farmer. Do you know how many animals are displaced or killed from farming? Like, do you have any idea how many wildlife, it's like you clear a chunk of land and then you're out there plowing up. So we take from the environment. That's what it is. And so we can survive. And, if you're a vegetarian, you're still killing a lot of animals, whether you know it or not. So it's just, again, it's a long-winded answer to your, what do we do? But in my opinion, again, it goes back to education and people donating their time and, talking with kids and, shows that do promote and support or show people where wild game comes from.
Yeah,
or food.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's crazy to think the lack of understanding people have, and I just saw an article in my local newspaper. It was that somebody had posted up on Facebook, and it was about how all the deer in town are dying. And it's because people are treating them like pets, and they're giving them their, human food and this and that. And I just got so irritated reading this article, and I left some long comment about, see, this is what happens. This is exactly what happens when people get so removed from wildlife and so removed from life and death, and the reality of how this world works, that they think wild animals are cute little pets, and you got a bunch of idiots feeding them and they end up dead. Thank you. And I went off on some rant. That was the summary of it.
Yeah, look at that. Fred Bear, again, I hate bringing him up, but he had so many poignant things that he said. But I think it was his quote that said, nature's law of tooth and claw is crueler than any death I could ever bestow. And, if you've ever watched a coyote, kill a calf or eat the whole back end out of a cow, while it's down, and then the rancher has to come down and kill that cow because the coyotes are eating on it all night while it's alive. People don't see that part of it. And they, again, like to your point, they put human, emotions into an animal. And it's like, no, they don't go to an old folks home. They don't have loved ones standing around taking care of them and feeding them baby sauce or some kind of, they don't have doctors. They get weak. They die of, disease, or they slowly starve to death. That's their option. So a bullet, an arrow, that's the best, literally, that's a great way to go. If I was an animal, I'd be like, heck yeah, I'd much rather that than screaming, which I've seen a deer screaming as coyotes eat it alive. But, the people that don't understand that or haven't seen that, they don't get that.
Yeah, it's the people that are the most opposed to hunting, I often find, are the farthest removed from nature. Oh, yeah.
They live in New York. They've never seen a deer. They live in places. Yep.
Oh my gosh. So enough about dumb people. Geez. You kind of got your start in hunting as, with rice and squirrels. You mentioned that, that was really what got you into it. Since then, things have changed a little bit, and you've seen a modicum of success, I'd say. It's the Grand Slam, the 29 North American big game animals. Super Slam. I always can't remember which one's which.
You're fine. Yeah. Chuck Adams was the first one to do it, actually, with a bow, and he was the one to name it.
Okay. But you were the first to do it with a recurve, correct?
Yes, sir. Me and another guy named Rick Dugan. There was 28, then there was 29. So it used to be 27 species. Then it was 28, then it was 29 as they added the Thule elk. So yeah, I was the first one to take all 29 with a traditional bow. And, it was really, it's funny. It wasn't about anything but me and wondering if I could do it, to be honest with you. It was, my original goal back when I was younger and cleaning Fred Bear's mounts was, man, I really want to harvest everything Fred Bear did. What a neat thing, because his experiences were so incredible with the people he met and the places he got to see. I thought, man, that would just be amazing. But, I realized I'm never going to shoot a Bengal tiger. I'm never going to shoot an elephant. Like there's some things that, it's like, so it was like, wow, I hope to experience some of the other things Fred Bear experienced. And then about that time, just as one of those little, childhood dreams or goals, Chuck Adams completed the Super Slam. And to me, that was like the Everest of bow hunting. I was like, wow, that had to be incredible. And just to experience that and see all those animals and all those places. And so as much as anything, I wondered if I had what it took physically and mentally. And I had no idea mentally. It's as big of a mental challenge as it is anything else. And so that was it for me. And there were multiple times I thought, nope, I don't have it. Definitely not mentally. I think I did the cheapest Super Slam out there. I did more. I did more self-guided animals at the time when I took mine. I had done more self-guided than anyone because, I didn't have the money or the means to do it. So I would, I shared a 1-bedroom apartment with a buddy of mine. We had our own cots. There was no Brokeback stuff, but we saved all our money so we could go hunting, and public land. And Colorado's such a great place because it's got 10 species right here. You can literally shoot a third, even if you don't draw the desert sheep and get 9 of them, you can shoot a third of them right here in Colorado. So I did self-guided hunts for those: Sitka blacktail, moose, caribou, self-guided mountain lion, self-guided goat, almost everything I could hunt self-guided. I did self-guided on public land. And for the animals that I couldn't hunt guided, I went with outfitters, and it took me years and years to save up the money or trade hunts. A lot of times I'd call up outfitters and go, "Hey, I can't afford to go grizzly bear hunting with you. Have you ever wanted to kill an elk? How about we do some swapping or trading, or can we do this or that?" So, it was really neat. And I had, that was one of my goals, and it was neat to do it. And the funny thing is, I thought, man, when I harvested that, that last animal, and it was such an adrenaline rush, and I had all these amazing experiences. I was like, even my dad was like, "Well, you did it. That's amazing. And that's so cool. What are you going to do now?" And I'm like, "I'm going to do it all again." Like, I want to keep going, and I want to keep doing this stuff because it's just about the adventures, and it's about the people, and, the places. So it's just fun, and it's gotten so crazy now that, I would tell somebody, "Man, save your money," because I couldn't afford, honestly, to do it now. I mean, with the cost of some of the animals and what they're getting for even sheep hunts now and things like that, it's crazy. But there's some amazing things. And I see guys now doing like the deer slam, you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, I'm going to go out and get all the species of deer." And that's exactly the same thing. A smaller scale, but it's the same thing. So I tell people, go do that. Get all the species of turkeys. You can do that all on public land, and, go out and try and shoot a Sitka blacktail by yourself on Kodiak Island, Alaska, and, go shoot a coos deer on public land in Arizona. Go shoot a Columbia blacktail in Oregon or Washington, and, go get a mule deer in public land. Go chase a whitetail. You don't have to have, a whole lot of means to be able to go do a lot of those amazing things. It just takes man, I'm going to buckle down and I'm going to go do it. Maybe I'm not going to buy a new truck. I had a beat up Jeep with 300,000 miles for a long time, but I had some pretty cool stories.
Well, it's one of those things. You sit there and you focus on the smaller stuff like that, and you just have those experiences, that exciting stuff. All of a sudden you're at 22 animals, 25 animals, and you're like, well, I have been saving up, and maybe I can go on that guided desert sheep hunt, or maybe I can, go on that goat hunt, or pay for a private land Thule elk hunt, because let's face it, drawing a Thule elk is the likelihood is almost non-existent.
Yeah, but even those guys, you can do management hunts. I mean, that was my thing. It didn't matter to me whether it was, a trophy or a young animal or a female, whatever. It was like, if I could draw a tag or go on a management hunt, I'm putting in for desert sheep in, I think, 4 different states now. And, it's a lot of money to put it in. But what I do is I put it on a credit card, and then when I get that money back, I pay off the credit card. So, there's all kinds of neat ways to, you can play that game, put in for different states. And, I've had people go, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "Man, get a separate credit card and use that to put in for all these tags. And then don't let them beat you up on that, interest rate. You know what I mean? When that money comes back in, don't spend it, pay that stupid credit card off." But that way you can put in for tags that, you might not be able to do otherwise.
That's one of the things I always tell people is I'm like, listen, find like a 0% interest rate, like a super low interest rate credit card. Doesn't have to have that high of a limit, but when you're putting in for your tags for the year, put it all on that. And it's also nice because it makes it easier to track how much you're spending. But you want to put in for everything in the kitchen sink in New Mexico. Awesome. You put in for all that stuff, and then it just goes right back on the credit card. And it's usually the turnaround time's quick enough to where you're barely paying any interest on it, if anything.
You got it. That's some of the games we play, and even putting in for tags. I've had guys like, man, it's so hard to draw the tags. I'm like, man, you gotta play that game. I mean, like even Rocky Mountain Goat, tag here in Colorado, I saw that the odds are actually better of drawing a rifle tag than it was drawing an archery tag. So there were bow hunters all put in for the archery tags. I'm like, man, I'm going to put in, there's a little better odds for this rifle tag. And then I'm going to go with my bow. So that's exactly what I did. I drew a rifle tag and took my recurve out and shot one during a rifle goat tag. So you can, a lot of states, some states allow that, some states don't, but it's always worth playing the game and looking at the odds. And there's so many companies now that, will research that for you. There's a lot of people that, that have that information, available to you.
So you're talking a lot about the mental challenge of doing that super slam. And if I was to put in a guess, I would probably say that the toughest would have had to have been sheep, as far as with a recurve, especially. Am I far off?
You're 100% right. That's exactly. I've had people that before. They're all challenging. I've had people say, "What?" They're all super challenging. But in some of the hard hunted areas that I hunted the sheep in, getting within range, especially of the traditional bow of those sheep, was a heck of a challenge. And that's what I loved about it, though. I tend to. Don't get me wrong. You mentioned that that hunt in the comfortable chair and having your coffee. I love those too. I mean, it's great to have. But if I was to pick my favorites, I would say it's the ones where, I lose 10 or 15 pounds. I'm exhausted. I've been sleeping in a tent for 12, 14 days. Those are the ones when I'm just pushed to the max. I don't know why I like the punishment of that. I wish I would have gotten into golf sometimes, but I love those ones where it's like, man, those are the ones I feel like I really pushed myself and I got it done. And so those are some of my favorite, but yes, the sheep by far were some of the toughest and the ones that can eat you. I've had some crazy experiences with animals charging and, somewhere I was puckered up or, because of plane crashes or boats flipping, almost died multiple times, just stupid stuff, I've had some pretty crazy experiences over the years.
I think, there's definitely something special about hunting something that's just as likely to hunt you back.
That's a whole nother element to it.
especially when you have to get close enough to it to get it with a recurve bow. Yeah. I'm doing, I'm not, I always told myself I'd do it with a bow first, but I've got a buddy coming out this spring and we're going to be chasing black bear here in Montana. And I'm excited. It's his first hunt and he is prepared for the type 2 fun. I've explained to him, but there's just something that I think, that captures the imagination about hunting predators, especially the bigger predators that,
Yep.
You may end up getting charged. You may end up having one sneaking up on you. I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, if you've ever been in the woods, you've probably had a mountain lion staring at you. Likelihood is if you spent any decent amount of time in the woods, and you just would never in a million years know it.
No, but they're amazing.
No, there's definitely something special about predator hunting. I'm excited to get out this spring. I'm determined if I end up losing money because I have to take time off, I'm still going to do it anyway, because I did not get out much this last season. So
yeah, well, you can't take the money with you, right? Might as well have some experiences.
Exactly. The only reason I'm making the money anyway is to go hunting. So if I'm not hunting, what's the point of making it?
Yes, sir.
So, if you were approached by someone, maybe they overheard you talking about hunting or whatever it happens to be, and they're like, you know what? I've always thought this was really interesting. I've always wanted to go hunting for the first time, but it's the bar is set way too high. There's too much to learn, too much gear to buy. It's just, I don't know. It's intimidating. I don't know if I can do it. What words of wisdom or inspiration would you give that person?
Well, I try and take people like that a lot. That's how I've gotten some of my buddies, into it, especially when I was younger and still try and take people. But, I would say, go to a local gun shop or an archery shop or, make some friends. Most hunters, outdoorsmen in general, fishermen, hikers, they love to share what they love to do. So odds are you can go in there and go, man, I'd really love to go hunting, but I don't really know where to go. and most people will help you out. Call a game warden. Most of the game wardens I've had experiences with have been really good guys. Most of them are into it because they're outdoorsmen or outdoorswomen, and they could give you some advice like, hey, this area is pretty good, or it seems like a lot of people shoot deer in this area. But to get started, the best place, just like if I was going to go skateboarding, man, I would go to a skateboard shop, and go, hey guys, what do I need to do here? Give me some instruction. So having worked at an archery pro shop, I'd say go to a Bass Pro Shop or a Cabela's store, or go into a mom and pop archery shop or gun store. Most people are really willing to help you out. And if they're not, go to another store. You'll find somebody that's going to be real amenable to giving you some tips. Don't buy a ton of equipment yet, or start out with something inexpensive. You can get a gun and a scope for very little money. You can get a used bow and some arrows, for very little money, and go out and try it out. Just dip your toe in the water, but preferably go with somebody that knows what they're doing. And you don't have to start huge. Go out squirrel hunting with somebody that likes to squirrel hunt. Let them teach you how to skin a squirrel and show you how good fried squirrel can be, or rabbit hunting. Don't grandiose it, because if you don't know what you're doing, getting an elk on the ground or even a deer on the ground and not knowing how to gut it can be pretty intimidating. But go with somebody and start small. So I usually tell guys, get out there, start small, dip your toe in the water first before you jump in. Like, a fisherman's not going to go after a marlin for their first fish. Normally they're going to go catch a brim or, catch a catfish. And I kind of equate that to hunting. Start out small, check it out, dip your toe in the water. Odds are you'll go, wow, this is amazing. I love watching the sun come up and listen to the woods come alive around me. And if I get something and I'm learning how to cook it myself and skin it myself, then you'll probably be helplessly addicted. And then if you want to upgrade that bow or that rifle or that shotgun or whatever it is, you can. But, I tell guys, don't have that first experience by yourself, hook up with somebody and have them take you out.
Fantastic. Well, so if folks wanted to follow along with the adventures, also if they wanted to find Full Draw Outfitters, where are they looking?
So I've got a YouTube channel. I also have a fan page, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We do all that good stuff. So they can check that out. I also have a TV show on the Sportsman's Channel. It's called Everything Eichler, and a lot of it's about the lifestyle, then Full Draw Outfitters, they could go and check out that website. We take about, quite a few people hunting every year for whitetail, mule deer, elk, bear, antelope, mountain lion, turkey, a little bit of everything. So they can find me on all those normal avenues.
Well, I'll definitely make sure to link to all of that on the show notes page, thewildinitiative.com. Fred, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and hop on with me.
Sam, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. And good luck on your property. I'm excited for you on that. And good luck bear hunting with your buddy. I hope you guys have a blast, and I hope you get lucky and get a bear as well.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, y'all, that'll do it for this episode of The Wild Initiative. Make sure to check out the show notes page at thewildinitiative.com. Get links to everything we talked about in today's episode. Big thank you to Fred for taking the time out of his day to join me on the podcast and share some of his knowledge, some of those stories. Make sure to give him a follow if you're looking to hunt in Southern Colorado. Check out Full Draw Outfitters. That'll do it for this week. Looking forward to next time. But until then, I hope this episode inspired you to get involved, get outdoors, and plan your initiative for the wild.
Thank you for listening to The Wild Initiative. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher, and head on over to thewildinitiative.com to get show notes, check out the blog, gear discounts, other podcasts from the Wild Initiative family, and more.
I always tell people, if any stories come up, it doesn't matter what rabbit hole we get down.
All right, well, I won't go into my OnlyFans page then. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But you said weird places. I just had to go there. So.